Hi everybody, it is day 16 of the 100-day Russian challenge, and I thought I would do a quick video to show you how I'm now starting to do sentence mining, which is the main tool that I'm going to be using throughout this challenge, both to learn vocabulary and grammar. So the idea is that you have a textbook. Let me just go into the book here, and you find a group of sentences, or any sentence that you want to mine, that you want to add to your list of sentences. So I found this series of short sentences here on this page. This book is called Le Russe à votre rythme, which is one of the main textbooks I'm using. It's for French speakers, but that doesn't matter for the purposes of this exercise. You just want a group of sentences which you know are in good Russian, and I assume these are, since this textbook is written by Russians. So I'm going to copy this group of sentences. I want to add it to my list of sentences to study. So I copy it from this PDF, and first thing I do is I paste it into Notepad. That removes any extraneous formatting. And now I'm just going to get rid of these things that I don't need, the numbers, these dashes, just to clean it up a bit. Excuse my noisy keyboard. I like these old-fashioned clicky keyboards. So now I have these sentences. Sometimes some of the characters don't copy properly from PDF files, but these ones all look good to me. Sometimes a character will be replaced by a number or the wrong letter. I'll show you how to fix that in a minute when I come across one. But these all look good. So now the sentences have been cleaned up. I now copy them from Notepad into Google Translate, which I have open here. Okay, and that does, so we have Russian on the left, and on the right, Google translates English, which for our purposes is fine. And what I can do from here is we add them to a Google Sheet, which I do not think you can see here. So let me add that to my screen so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry about that. I forgot to add the Google Sheet. Okay. Now you should now be able to see the Google Sheet. And I am going to paste in the Russian and English from Google Translate. So first, I'll paste the Russian here. So here's Russian sentences, and I'll go back to Google Translate, copy the English, and paste them in right next to it. And now, as you can see, we have the start of our list of sentences. And the idea is we're going to have thousands and thousands of sentences. So these are very simple, and it's, you know, when I look at these Russian sentences, I think, these are easy. Когда Pavel работает? Okay, of course I know what that means in English. You know, when does Pavel work? When does Paul work? Pavel работает днем. Okay, but it's always harder to do it the other way around. So when I first practice this, what I'll do is I'll just look at this sheet, but I won't look. I'll look at the English. I'll cover up the French. I'll cover up the Russian. I'll look at the English, and I'll say, when does Pavel work? And then I produce the Russian. Когда работает Pavel? Okay? Or когда Pavel работает? And then I'll check, and then you immediately check whether or not you got it right or wrong. That's the whole idea, is you want immediate feedback. So the next one, I promise you I'm not looking at the Russian. Pavel works during the day. Pavel работает днем. And I look, and yes, I got that one right. What does he do during the day? Okay. Что делает? Что он делает днем? Что он делает днем? Что он делает днем? Что он делает днем? Okay, my intonation's a bit off, but I check. Что он делает днем? Okay. He works during the day. Он работает днем. When does he rest? Когда он отдыхает? Okay. He rests in the evening. Он отдыхает вечером. Он отдыхает вечером. And you see how I hesitated a little bit there. I went, вечером, okay. So this is why we do it in this way. because it's always harder going from your target language back to your native language, which is exactly why we do it. When you first practice, of course, you can go from Russian to English, so from target language to native language. But that's much, much easier. Especially, but that's good, especially if you're learning vocabulary. These words, I know all of these words in these sentences, so that's not an issue. But once you got, and the grammar in these sentences, it's very simple. This is beginner stuff, yeah? But that's why you need to then start going the other way. This is what will really make you, this is how you know if you actually are learning stuff. This is how you know if you really know. Sometimes you think you know, but this is the only way to really test it. So let me go down here. Again, I'm not looking at the Russian. What do you do in the evening? Что ты делаешь вечером? Что ты делаешь вечером? Or что вы делаете вечером? So I could produce the sentences, but there was a little hesitance there, even though they're super simple. I read in the evening. Я читаю вечером. I'm also trying to go a bit too fast. I should slow down a bit. You should give yourself, if you're a person who has a tendency to talk fast in your mother tongue, like I do sometimes, it's good to just slow yourself down. There's no need to try to talk fast in a language you're learning. It just makes it worse. You know, when do you read? Когда ты читаешь? See, it didn't come to mind instantly. We want it to come to mind instantly. So that's why we practice these. And I'll practice these several times throughout the day and over the coming days. Now, the next stage after this is, especially as the sentences get more complex, would be to add audio. And to add audio, there's probably the easiest way to do that is to add your list of sentences to Anki. And in Anki, there are plugins you can add, which will automatically add audio to your cards. And the audio, you know, it will add audio from various services like Google Translate or various text-to-speech services. I don't know anything about that because I've never actually created my own cards in Anki, but I may well be doing that later. But for now, this is good enough. For now. But yeah, it's always good to have audio. Because that way then also you can just kind of do it on the go. If you're out and about, you can have Anki in your phone, and it can you can just start Anki. You know, you can use it anytime you have some sort of downtime. If you're on the bus or on the metro, or taking a few minutes off, you have 10 minutes, you're not doing anything, run through some of these sentences. Absolutely. And of course, you can also turn them into a recording. That's what I like to do. I've been going for a walk every morning. So I'll just add these sentences I'll take the recordings and I'll add them to what I listen to in the morning, and I'll have it so it plays the English first and then the Russian. It plays the English first, it gives me a few seconds to reply or to respond, and then it says the Russian, and maybe have it repeat, say 5 times, something like that. And the idea here is we'll really drill these words in. All these words which should be very simple, at this stage, and they are very simple when you go from Russian to English, but they're less simple when you go from English to Russian, or from your mother tongue to the target language. So that's the idea. And of course, this is just one idea for finding sentences. What you can also do to find more sentences is, say you take, just go onto Russian websites or Russian language websites. So you could take something like this. And now, I haven't got this tab open. So I just plug it into Google, and bam, I come up with all sorts of websites which have those words in them, text with those words. And you can then take sentences from those websites, plug them into Google Translate, and then add them to your list here. And the idea is you'll start to gradually learn vocabulary and grammar structures. For example, let's go later in this book. Let's see if we can find some more complicated sentences. to do here. Okay. Those are exercises with missing words. We don't want that. So, for example, what have we got here? Что вы будете делать после обеда? So here we have a different case ending, you know, a different ending for обед. Обед урока. So the normal, the nominative case ending, in the nominative case it's урок, but this is, I guess, the genitive. I haven't really learned the cases, but it's после means you can't say после урок. You have to say после урока. So these would be good ones to copy. Let's copy these ones, these sentences here. And without, see, I know that there's a different ending because I've learned the word urok already. That's one of the first ones you learn early on in your studies. But uroka, okay, when do you have to use uroka? Well, if you find sentences with uroka, you'll figure it out. So let's add these sentences to our list. Get rid of these numbers. It looks like all the characters copied correctly. Sometimes a character gets capitalized for some reason, like this, but it's still correct. They all copied correctly. So now let me copy them into Google Translate, like before. Get rid of these ones, copy these ones. We now have our translation. Okay, and now we can add them to our list too. Add the Russian here, and oops, I'll copy the English, and add the English here. So now we have another 6 or 7 sentences. Okay, and let's do some more. Let's get some more, see if we can find some more complicated ones that we can have. Same thing with vocabulary, by the way. You could just copy this list of vocabulary. Работать, отдыхать, заниматься, читать. So these are just verbs. Писать, or not just verbs actually. Писать сочинение. That's good because it's писать сочинение means to write an essay. Играть в теннис. This also teaches you something, to play tennis. But when you in Russian, you can't just say играть tennis. You have to say играть, and you have to have the v in there. You play v something. Играть в football. Играть в tennis. Okay, so why not add these? You can add words. It doesn't have to be sentences, or you could have a separate list for words, for example, if you wanted to do it that way. Hold on. First, let me put them in here. Работать, отдыхать. I'll put each word on a separate line. Писать сочинение, теннис. So пойти в кино, пойти в гости. Okay. So now you can add these also to your list, but I prefer sentences generally. If you want to get more complicated, or more, if you just to create more sentences, you can actually do this exercise. So the idea is, let's look at the example. Что ты будешь делать после ужина? Что ты будешь делать после ужина? So what will you do after dinner? После ужина я хочу смотреть телевизор. А ты? After dinner, I will watch television. What about you? А я хочу пойти гулять. I'm going to take a walk. Okay, that's actually a good series of sentences. Might as well add that to our list while we're at it. Let me cut and paste it here, because this sounds like an actual dialogue. So you see how easy it is. You imagine doing this. You do this every day a little bit, and soon you will have a huge stock of sentences. Okay, now I will copy them into the Google Sheet. You know, copy the English. Whoops, what am I doing? Copy the English into the Google Sheet for these 3 sentences. Make it a bit bigger here. So let's see if I remember. What will you do after dinner? I'm not looking at the Russian. Что ты будешь делать после ужина? Okay. После ужина, and this one, после ужина, я хочу посмотреть телевизор. А ты? Look at the Russian. See, there I made a mistake. I said я хочу посмотреть. I should be смотреть. Смотреть. После ужина я хочу смотреть телевизор. Okay, а ты? And this one, and I want to go for a walk. Я хочу пойти гулять. Я хочу пойти гулять. Okay, that one I got right. But you get instant feedback, which is exactly what's needed. That's like the big problem when you're learning languages, is that feedback you need. And yeah, even if you have lessons, it's very hard for a teacher to give feedback every single time. You really have to specify it and you have to focus on it. But this is a good way to get feedback immediately. And this is because at the end of the day, you're teaching yourself. So you can't rely on your teacher to teach you everything. A teacher is a guide. So you have a lesson, you know, and your teacher guides you along the way and points out, you know, regular problems you have, or regular, you know, if your teacher sees, if she notices, for example, that you always pronounce something this way, in this thing incorrectly, this sound incorrectly, a teacher can help you with that, or a teacher notices that you use the past tense wrong consistently. You consistently misuse the past tense, or something like that. The teacher is there to guide that sort of thing. But the real learning comes every single day, doing this kind of stuff, going through your books, listening to these sentences. Now hold on, let me go back to the textbook. I want to find some, okay, here's some longer sentences here. And in this exercise, we're supposed to put the sentences in the past tense, but that's an exercise, which we don't have the sentences written in the past tense. But what you can do is, anyway, when you're listening to sentences, so for example, say you're listening, let me go back to our sheet here. Yeah, when you hear a sentence, like you said, you hear a sentence like, I read in the evening, and then you say correctly in Russian, я читаю вечером. You check, and yes, you got it right, я читаю вечером. Okay, what else can you say using this model? Я читаю днем. I read during the day. Я читаю утром. I read in the morning. Я читаю книгу. I read a book. Я читаю газету. Я читаю whatever. Just plug in whatever you can think of to plug in to this model. Я читаю газету. Я читаю журнал. Я читаю книгу. Of course, you have to know what you're doing, but try to use whatever you've learned so far, even if it's super basic. You know, do what you can. Like this one. You know, first you do this, first you look at English, what do you do in the evening? You try to get the Russian. Что ты делаешь? Что вы делаете вечером? Okay, you check. Yes, good, got it right. Что вы делаете вечером? Same thing. Что вы делаете днем? Что вы делаете утром? Что ты делаешь вечером? Что ты делаешь утром? Что ты делаешь днем? And the idea is you get used to saying these things. You do have to speak. Now, I don't really recommend at this point. I have no real desire to try to speak to native speakers to have an actual conversation, because I don't have enough Russian. But you do need to practice speaking, because it's an exercise. Your tongue and your mouth and your jaws and all that need to get used to saying Russian words and Russian sentences. So that's why I suggest a lot of this listen and repeat, and also adapting and modifying the sentences in any way you can, because that's the kind of thing that will come in really handy. Let's just do a few more sentences, like these ones here. These are a little longer. So we copy them into Notepad. And again, it looks like they copied really well. No mistaken. This one, let's get that there. All the letters copied over correctly. Okay, now we copy them. Oops. didn't mean to do that. Copy them into Google Translate here. Okay. Yep. And then copy them into our sheet. Get the English and copy that. And here we go. See, we've already got 27 sentences after just a few minutes of working on it. And I've been explaining as I go, but once you get the hang of it. So, again, you can copy from textbooks. That's what I recommend. Or because obviously the sentences in textbooks are designed to help you learn. That's why I recommend copying them from textbooks. Some people, I've seen people on YouTube channels who make their own sentences by just writing up sentences in English, for example, if you're an English native speaker, writing up a bunch of sentences in English, and then putting them into Google Translate. And yes, that will work, but then we're translating into Russian, and we don't really know, because we don't know the language, if it's translating correctly or if it's translating in a way that the Russians would say it. We just don't know, So I prefer to do it this way, to take the Russian sentences, from Russian textbooks, or at least from Russian language websites, because then you'll know the Russian is correct. But I prefer from textbooks, because the textbooks are made for learners. And you can sort of do it as you go through a textbook, and that way the sentences will get increasingly harder as you go, which is perfect, because you'll be getting better and better. But you can also, from time to time, review the easy sentences, just to make sure. So anyway, that's my basic sentence mining technique. I hope it's helpful. And if you have any other techniques, just let me know in the comments. I'll also be doing later, we'll be doing a video probably on how to turn these into audio that you can then put on your phone or on your MP3 player or whatever you use to listen to audio. Anyway, have a good one.